Hello, listeners. I am Sanjeeb Lahiri, and you're listening to the CHRO Mindset Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the CHRO Mindset Podcast, where we bring you candid, thought-provoking conversations with top HR leaders and experts. And here's your host, Pulkit Joshi. Today, we have the privilege of hosting Mr. Sanjeeb Lahiri. Sanjeeb is a C-suite HR professional with over 25 years of professional experience at a global level across multiple industries covering informations and communication technology, trading, distribution, manufacturing, and many other holding companies, including startups. He is currently the CHRO of GRP Limited. Prior to this, he held leadership positions with Tata Communications, Tata International, and Tata Africa. Sanjeeb holds postgraduate qualifications in HR and marketing, training and development, and is an ICF accredited PCC level coach. He also holds certifications in Malcolm Baldrige Quality Systems, Gallup Q12, Mercer IPE, Emotional Intelligence, NLP, Positive Psychology, Neuroscience, and Group Coaching. He is an ICF PCC level executive, leadership and business transformation coach, a certified gold mentor from the Global Mentorship Initiative, excellence champion, DEI evangelist, transformation catalyst, and a crusader against loneliness and burnout. He has been featured in India's top 100 great people managers list for 2023 and has been recognized as one of the most prominent diversity and inclusion leaders by the World HRE Congress in 2024. Sanjeeb, thanks for taking out time to speak with us today, and welcome to the CHRO Mindset Podcast.
Pleasure is all mine, Pulkit. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thanks, Sanjeeb. Let's start with an icebreaker question, and I'm sure everybody has had their most rewarding moments, in their respective functions. But for you, being an HR leader, please talk to us. What was the most rewarding part of being an HR leader?
See, I think the most rewarding part of being an HR leader it would be, for me, honestly, and I live it every day, it is the ability to be able to touch people's lives. If I would have been in business, only in business, I would have made the business decisions, I would have been responsible for profits or business growth and so on and so forth. Definitely matters to be high, right? Being in HR gives me that whole ability or opportunity to take the business where it needs to be, along with my colleagues in business. However, the cherry on the cake is the opportunities to be able to actually, touch people's lives, transform talent, maybe impact communities of some sorts, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, the reward I do live this reward every day.
That's an excellent way to look at it. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm so glad that you live it every day. Privileged are folks, who feel so rewarded every day. So touch wood there, and kudos to you for that answer. Let's now talk about a couple of stories around how your HR leadership journey has been, right? We all have our highs and lows. So we will want you to talk about a time when you had to balance the needs of global or geographically dispersed teams and ensure effective collaboration. I'm sure there would have been challenges and whatnot. So would love for you to share some of those insights.
Sure. Interesting enough, and I'll just give a context to this. I will not name the organizations.
Sure.
However, in one of my organizations, and at that point in time, I actually had taken a role change to try myself out as a HRBP, as you call these days, right? The whole concept of business partnering was coming in. I was in a very much specialist role, and I tend to believe that I was doing well there. However, my calling was to actually look at, the entire HR gamut. So therefore, with a lot of conversations within the organization, I took a horizontal movement to an HRBP role. And the role that was given to me was to be the HRBP for all the business support functions. Now, when I say business support function, it is an absolute mixed bag. So it had HR included, So I have experimented my role in the, being an HR for HR. And other functions included finance, statutory, compliance, regulatory, business strategy, business excellence, and so on and so forth. So it was an absolute global team. The teams from Hong Kong to the US, and here I am sitting in India. And this was a team which earlier were was either anchored geographically in various organizations. But those organizations, so my organization at that point in time had actually taken over those entities. So therefore, there was a need to have the one team kind of a culture. I mean, one team kind of a concept, because every region functioned on their own, and even if there are two people of the same function, but they traditionally belong to different entities, legal entities, they also worked on their own. So that was the fun. That was the gamut of the fun. And these teams never worked globally. They never worked with anybody else across the borders. So that added to the, to the other fun and games, if I may. So, how do we make this team work? What we believed at that point in time was to have some definitions right, but most importantly at that point in time, to get the teams together. Because personally, I mean, having gone through, or having handled matters of OD, then the teams need time to work together at least, and the physical proximity always helped. So basically, call them all for a week in India. First and foremost, took them out for an offsite and an outbound, a very well designed outbound. First and foremost, to break the ice. Most importantly, so that each people know the other person as a person, and also those subtle differences come in front in terms of call it culture, call it language, call it choice of words, call it the way of working, and so on and so forth. So the first offsite we did, we thought things are good. People went back. Couple of weeks down the line, we said, oh, things were really not as good as we thought them to be. So then, and we can't be really calling the entire teams from the entire world to a place every time. So then we started actually communicating, and communicating was at a manager levels with the teams. Because remember now, with these teams coming together, their reporting managers were actually cross country, right? So say if I sitting in India, something is acceptable to me, it may not be to my colleague who may be sitting in any part of Europe or any part of the Americas or whatever, right? So then we actually did some surveys. I wish the collaboration tools that we have today were available at those point in time, but now we did normal, surveys over email and so on and so forth, use Outlook a bit to actually ask people very clearly, what is acceptable to you, what is not acceptable to you. Yep. And so on and so forth. So basically, what would you consider as rude? Very simple questions like this. So then everybody then actually it was like a whole knowledge bank for everybody. So if I'm talking to somebody in India, first and foremost, the time difference. So when I am taking my morning coffee, it is actually this guy has finished his dinner in India. So is it the good time for me to call? Or expect the person to be attending to my phone, So started with that and might take it that entire exercise in this entire experience. And I had to do that for multiple teams, at multiple times of the year. So that actually exposed me to this whole fact, and it actually proved the point that human connections actually, each human being has the capability to understand the other human being, right? Only thing is that we need to talk. We need to talk things which are not comfortable talking, and we need, from the organization's perspective, we need to really to collaborate. We must communicate.
Yeah.
So one of the great learnings that I had, which I used in later parts of my life, and I had to go through, similar kind of situations.
Wonderful. Wonderful. What a story. Thank you for sharing that. Let's now talk about a time when you had to lead a team through a major technology implementation or digital transformation and how you manage the change. Because as individuals, as humans, we are always averse to change, right? I think psychologically, it's about preserving, right, the status quo, and I think that's what helps our survival, right? That's how, as humans, we have evolved. And this continues to be a problem for a lot of folks, a lot of HR leaders. So would love to know your perspective, your story.
I just build on what you just said, Pulkit. Yes, the fight and flight does come into our brains. Definitely it does. However, I think as humans, and all of us have the prefrontal context, right? That which cortex, which actually helps us to think. So therefore, if you're able to answer the story and answer the question, what's in it for me, acceptances and maybe rejections as well, becomes much easier. So here is a time in the same organization, we were implementing one of the major ERPs. HRMS call it, or HR ERPs as you call it. And we were the first to actually get to develop that ERP from a learning module solution. Right. And the implementation was happening globally. Now, the good part was that we had some kind of a ERP prior to that. It was not a full-fledged HRMS, but it did have certain functionalities of HRMS, particularly, claims, etc. and all. Claims, leaves, time and attendance, partly payroll, and so on and so forth. Now, when we were implementing this ERP, once again, the scale I told you when I was just speaking a little while ago, so that it was across the world. Yeah. Now, and as I said, every organization were using systems of their own in some sorts. So now here is the challenge. If somebody is using X, a solution called X, not the current Twitter, but yeah, how can I make the person to shift to Y? And that is where the worsen it for me came in. So a lot of, once again, communication, lot of, what do you say? Demos were done, lot of use cases were being tested, including the entry level users, the administrators from my tech teams, the consultants from the service provider, and all of those. We had created a crack team, but however, the crack team's rule was to configure the system. But all the testing we involved the actual level users, irrespective of whatever level the person was. So, say for example, if the person was, say, a global CHR or a global CFO, they actually sat through these testings at their level, simply to give them a feel or a hang of how different this is from whatever they have been used to do earlier, and how this can actually help them. The system was very robust, I must say. Now, in spite of doing all those, we will still have an X percentage of the population who will try to hold on to what was there earlier. So, and we had communicated that a particular day, all the older systems, all the legacy systems will stop functioning, and we implemented it. There was a little hue and cry. Why, not enough time? Why this? Why that? Okay, keep it open for sometime more. Wherever data got transferred to the new system, fine. Where data did not get transferred to the new system, they had to be actually configured once again. So we went through all those pains. But very shortly, if I look at it today in retrospect, communication involving the users hands-on, and 3, taking the call that from this day this exists and the others don't. So that actually helped us to use this. There were people available to help and support, and we actually had done this because the new system had a very good, robust, appraisal and compensation planning module, and we had actually timed it along with our appraisals, and when the when the salary revisions happen. So that gave everybody a baptism by fire, because they had to do it only on the system, only on the new system, and also the system got tested. So it was as it is for the system as well. But some fun and games, a little bit of trouble at that point in time. It did happen, late nights, a lot of days. However, when the whole exercise got completed and we actually then celebrated, yes, we did it, and the whole process happened without any errors on the new system, which was configured for the first time. So, very good success story, which I really hold close to my heart.
Great. Love that narrative there, Sanjeev, and I loved how you sort of pulled it through. Let's now switch gears a bit. Let's now talk about how should HR leaders, or how should they how they actually should manage the cultural differences that exist across a global workforce, right? So in your experience, what are the key challenges that leaders typically face when it comes to managing a culturally diverse team?
First and foremost, we tend to get stuck of what we think the other culture, and here I am talking of demographic culture, is. So we all get stuck to that fact of what is okay for me is also okay for the other person, right? Who is demographically very different, or even culturally, for that matter, very different than what I am. You call it stereotyping, you call it bias. Most of the time unconscious, but at times conscious also. So I think that is number one. Second, whatever else I can actually think can be byproducts of these. So basically, the difference of the culture therefore also impacts the perceptions and the communication styles. As I said, something that is absolutely okay for us to say may not be okay for the other person to actually hear, and that causes trouble, right? Similarly, into decision making, that the way I would take a decision, once again dependent on culture. So, for example, here, if I'm from a very hierarchical society and the hierarchy is respected, is accepted in the society, then maybe if I'm most in the room, I will say, okay, so be it. However, there are certain cultures for whom it is about equality. So I, being quote unquote either the most elderly or the senior most in terms of hierarchy, I am saying this is it. Other people may actually come back and say, no, I don't agree. Therefore, that is one. And then comes the whole issue of how do you really create a team of which comprises of the diverse people and culturally diverse people. And I'm only restricting my response on the cultural diversity to make things simple. If I put in the layer of say gender or personal identities, it gets complex, manifold. But yeah, I personally think, having really had the privilege to work across organizations and work across very, very diverse teams with all kinds of diversities that we can think of, I think the key lies in ourselves. The key lies in our own understanding that, once again, I will repeat by saying that whatever is okay with me is also okay with the other person. This awareness is very much needed, and I think this is something that actually kind of kills the fun of being in a culturally diverse teams. Have I answered you?
Thanks. Yes. To a large degree, you have answered the question. Thanks for that, Sanjeev. Let's now look at another aspect when it comes to navigating cultural differences in a global workforce. So how should HR leaders balance the need for cultural adaptation while maintaining a consistent organizational culture. So it's like the yin and the yang, right? You have to be diverse, but at the same time, you have to take care of the fact that it's all one team. Would be very tricky at times.
Yes, tricky if you think of it that way, but may not be as such. Here, I think, and I'll just go to another example, which I actually had the opportunity to do, and it just came out from the fluke, from a fluke. Why I call it a fluke is because there was a comment made that in a particular part of the world that you Indians are like that. Like for example, okay, I'll tell the comment. You Indians always speak Hindi. Right. Now, the point is that the person who was making that comment definitely is not an Indian. The languages that were spoken in that part of the world by folks from India was not necessarily Hindi. Right. So, and the other point that was always used to come up that, this culture and that culture. I mean, say an Indian culture or a British culture or whatever. Yeah. I use the term British as only as an example. Now, what actually had made us think, a couple of us, including myself, that look, at a workplace when we are talking of culture, we are really not meaning any of these. It is the culture what we need in our organization, right? Or it is the culture of the organization, which is actually very, very deeply embedded in the organization values. So then we thought, and the value statements of that particular organization was indeed very strong and integrated to the behaviors related to competency. So we already have the framework. So we thought, okay, when we talk of culture within the organizational framework, I can be from any part of the world. I can identify myself to anything. However, the word culture here will mean the culture of the organization, period. And that, what is the culture of the organization, is the values and the value behaviors, which is already laid down and we all know it. So we had to actually first get that base right. I can be from any part of the world. So whether I am from India, you are from UK, you are from the US, you are from Brazil, makes no difference when we are here. If we are saying integrity is our value, respect is our value, that is it. And respect means respect for everybody. Right?
Yeah.
So therefore I was really privileged enough to curate some certain contents around this. And we actually went on completely, I call it carpet bombing across all levels of people. That what do we understand by saying culture? What does this organization mean? This organization lives on its values. And the value has some behaviors. So for example, if say a kickback is a no, a kickback is a no. It is not that I'm Indian, I can do it, or you are from you're from another country, you can do it. Same way, if I cannot accept a gift over this amount, say, or a gift of that type, neither can you. So we actually, and in that discussion, through this curation rather, through all these modules, we actually took away the whole aspect of what is accepted in my culture and what is accepted in your culture. So this is what, while we walk into this organization and in our public lives, when we are representing the organization one, and also, at a certain point in time, we cannot actually separate ourselves from the identity of the organization. So where we are representing, this is what we are. And that had really helped. So I think, as we say always, that finding that North Star is needed. That common purpose. This was our common purpose. And that was the definition. That culture means the organization culture. Full stop.
Fantastic. Love that response. Thanks for that. Now let's switch back to one of the topics that we earlier discussed when you spoke about your HR leadership journey and how you led that, massive change when it came to implementation of a new technology. Let's now look at change management and organizational transformation in a little more depth and also in entirety. So, a couple of questions, we'll try and delve on regarding change management and organizational transformation. So, let's start with what role does effective communication play in driving successful change management initiatives? That is part one of the question. Second is, how should HR leaders ensure transparency and alignment throughout the process?
Okay. First answer, very short answer, very important, because without communication, change doesn't happen. Very, very, very clear.
Very true. Yeah.
And communication, as we all know, is a two-way process. It's not only top-down. There has to be a scope for bottom-up as well. And this is, okay, I'll come to the HR leaders because probably we have a delta plus to do. But leadership is about listening. Leadership is not only about dictating, right? Whatever has been decided for the organization to do, or the steps that the organization has decided to take, absolutely, I mean, it has to be maintained. However, an organization is nothing without its people, right? And that is where I think all leaders must be mindful of, that leaders cannot do much about the organization unless they have their teams, and each leader is successful only up to the extent where the teams are successful. If the teams are not successful, the leader is actually a failure. I may be making some very controversial statements, but that's my belief.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to, so therefore, the leaders should speak. The leaders must listen more. A lot of subtle information, lot of very important on the ground, make or break information that can actually influence a make or break decision comes in from the ground. Let us not close our ears to that. Coming on to the HR bit of it, I think we like it or not, more often we have a better touch point across the organization, maybe more than the business managers. Now it is both again and a pain. Again, because we would be susceptible, or rather we would have the opportunity to be receptive of to be observing the trend or the change that is already happening on the ground, which probably the business managers might miss. I'm not saying will miss, they may, because their focus at times may be a little off the people matter. Should not be, but we all are human beings at the end of the day. So that is one. And why is it a pain? Because at times we probably get overwhelmed with all this information that is coming on to us. And maybe we also get at loss to be able to process this. And we, as HR professionals, we tend to follow two things. At times, exactly what the business is saying, basically comply with the orders of the businesses, or we tend to think, no, the people are saying this, therefore whatever the business is doing is wrong. So we tend to take sides, and that is where we must avoid. We are here and we have this amazing this opportunity, as I said, is to impact businesses and also to touch lives. That is the balance that we must play. So let us use data, let us use information, let us use trends from our own knowledge, awareness, experience of the organization, and let us empower the businesses with that information so that the decisions when they are made, they are actually, most of the boxes are checked. There will still be some boxes unchecked or crossed, so be it. If the majority is if the direction is defined and the majority is aligned to the direction, I think we have done our job.
Great. Thank you for that. Let's now cover one more question around change management and organizational transformation. So, in your opinion, what role does leadership play in driving and sustaining an organizational transformation? That is part number one. I think to a certain degree you've answered it, but would still want you to maybe get into finer details if possible. The second part is, and how do you foster leadership buy-in and support throughout the change process? Because that is also equally important.
Okay. The key role that leadership has to play in any change process is actually walk the talk. We cannot only be the preachers, we should also be the practitioners of whatever we preach. Very, very, very important. If we don't, then very simple. The technology change that I was referring to a little while ago would not have been possible if the leaders themselves actually run. And I had seen cases where, for example, somebody from the team was unable to, do the job on the system. But say, for example, the top leaders of that particular function actually came and kind of said, "Okay, come on, let me show this to you." So once you do that, you have reestablished your credibility as a leader, that yes, you are not preaching that this system change is only for the teams, not for me. It's a huge boost to the team and a huge example in front of the team. When it comes to leadership buy-in, it is important once again to be able to answer the question why, because I have always believed, once again, grateful to my mentors to have exposed me or taught this to me, that when the why is clear, the what's and the hows are much, much easier. So basically, starting with the point why do we need this? Why do we need this? Why do we want, or why do we need to do this? Why do we need to go that way or this way, and so on and so forth? So I always try to get that why question answered. If that why is answered and the leadership is in alignment, you already have the buy. Thereafter, we must not deviate. Now, actually, a couple of days ago, I was speaking, in another forum, and at this point came up that about agility. And agility means changing gears and changing tracks. Now, where actually I had made a mention that, yes, we must adapt, and therefore we must be agile to be able to fight the tide, or, navigate the tide without losing focus of that why. So, it is a tough thing to do. It is not as easy as I'm saying it. However, to be staying true to that purpose, to be staying true to that commitment, and a purpose which is accepted also becomes a commitment from the leadership. Therefore, the whole concept of, the leadership ownership needs to be lived. It cannot be that, okay, I'm a fair weather decider. That doesn't work in leadership. So once a commitment has been made, the path has been defined, let us stay true to that. And out there, as say, for example, the HR person in the whole leadership team, I cannot be out of that. If I have said yes, or the leadership has decided to which I am also a party, I must stand with it. All differences happens after before the meeting. Once it is signed off, we all are together, either in gain, also in pain. So, true. Did I answer you?
Yes, you did, Sanjeeb. Thank you for that. I think we've as a guest, you've done tremendous justice to this topic. You've gotten into a lot of details and practical advice. Thanks for that. Let's now talk about, and we're not going to be talking about HR technology, but it's related to HR technology for sure. I'm talking about AI, right? There's so much happening right now. Generative AI, everybody's going crazy. Of course, there is tremendous potential to disrupt how HR is run, not just HR, even at my side of the house, marketing, right? But like, there is there's always a head, so there's a tail, right? So there are potential risks that are associated with AI. So in your opinion, what are the potential risks of over relying on AI when it comes to making decisions in HR?
Okay. Some thoughts, but before that, I will just say, AI, artificial intelligence, is not a replacement to the natural intelligence that we all have. Uh, uh, it is supportive to that, right?
Yeah.
And I will also say an observation that see, generative AI will, okay, end of the day, what is AI? Or for that, how does all these functions work? It all works based on the algorithms that has been written. Who has written those? So there is the human bias, which somehow has already cropped into the algorithms that have been written, right? So first and foremost, if we say AI is AI called, or GI is bias free, it cannot be, because human beings like you and I, who have our own biases, conscious, subconscious, cognitive, not cognitive, blah blah. While we are doing anything, we have already put in that. So therefore, there's no reason to believe that the systems will be absolutely correct in predicting everything. Second is, the decision-making capability of the systems gets stronger with usage. Now, usage means various types of usages. It is as simple as that. So, for example, what used to happen in India years ago, all our cricket teams used to play on the slow wickets, right? Our wickets used to be like that. Our pitches used to be like that. So what used to happen to us when there was a change in the pitch? We lost. How did we get over that? By playing on different pitches, as simple as that. So the same for technology and technology like this, let the system gets exposed and used at a level where at a system itself, through trending, it would be able to be closer to the 100% mark. Today, I'm really not even quoting it, that today it is 70% accurate or 80% accurate. I hear people saying it is 98.99% accurate as to who has measured it and based on what, right? So therefore, the first thing that gets into this kind of a system is the amplification of the bias, etc. We really don't know what the algorithm has been written. So therefore, based on what the system is making a judgment, a lot of times as users, we may not know. Third aspect, and very dangerous, I would say, as I said before, that it is not a replacement to the natural intelligence that we all connect. And it is not the intelligence. And we also have our own awareness and our own wisdom as human beings, right? So therefore, we can use this as a data point. We can use whatever reports or whatever output we are getting from a system as a data point. However, make our own decision based on what we need. I'm not saying just throw away that report. Use that report. Use your analysis to be able to make a proper decision. So do not reduce the human interference or the human oversight in decision making. Transactional jobs, it can always do. I'm not even getting there. Let the decision making has to be by the human being. There's a lot of legality involved. There's a lot of the data protection laws that we have that India has just adopted. Similarly, there are laws across the world which mandates AI to be used in certain ways, and I think we must use that. As simple as that. Once again, in the HR forums, we get to hear this, that attrition prediction, and somebody would say, okay, person ABC has a higher risk of jumping the ship. Now, a system has said that based on whatever the system has seen that we don't know, and then if we then start discriminating that person, which may be wrong, and there are plenty of examples which say that these predictions are not correct, mostly not correct. Of people, leaving the organization in 6 months or in 1 year, or maybe the tendency to fall sick. Now, organizations need to be mindful. The leaderships need to be mindful of that, taking a decision based on that, because here we are impacting somebody's livelihood and career. Please, we are human beings. Be aware.
Yeah.
Right? And by doing this, and wherever I have seen, or an over reliance on AI/GI based on data. His tech, people decisions are primarily based on this is what the machine is saying. I'm sure we have lost the trust and belief of our teams there, because if the machine says us that I am likely to be no good in the next 6 months, the organization says to believe, and therefore what happens to me as a person. So, my belief, and I do believe it, that let humans not be ruled by the machine. Let humans use the machine to the best advantage, and let the human intelligence take the decisions, at least for some more time.
Great thoughts there, Sanjeeb. A lot of wisdom there, that I could certainly understand. And thanks for sharing that. Last question before we sign off. Any piece of literature, any book or anything that has influenced your leadership journey?
Well, ages ago, I had read this book called Who Moved My Cheese?
Okay.
And that has stayed with me. Yep. And simply because it reminds me of that, any kind of a change, and we are really living, call it VUCA, call it Bani, call it anything. Every day things are different in today's life, right? So there would be somebody who is going to move my cheese away. How do I stay relevant? How do I still get my own share of cheese? So this book reminds me, completely. I have somehow had this at the back of my head always. Late I read another book, which is also, very, very, very interesting. And this is The Art of Thinking Clearly. It's a book by Rolf DeBelly.
Yeah.
I read it a couple of months ago. And I actually bounced across this book, and I said, okay, the title looks good. So it makes us aware about our own, call them unconscious or subconscious biases, and every sphere of life. So I think, so it actually tells that what to avoid. And so I had read it once. I'm trying to absorb and read it maybe once again. Maybe we can talk sometime later on that. But this is another book that I really find interesting. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. I wish we could have gone on with more questions, but we have a limited time here. But a huge shout out to you, Sanjeeb, for joining us today on the CHRO Mindset podcast. It was such a pleasure having you on the podcast. I loved those little one-liners that you had to say at multiple junctures, right? I actually became a fan of how you think about solving problems in a very simple way. I did bring in a new perspective to our discussions, and I'm sure the listeners would have loved your insights. Thanks again for taking out time to speak with us today.
Thanks, absolutely a pleasure. Thanks millions for the opportunity, Pulkit. Best wishes for all our listeners, and to you and your team. You're doing a fab job, my friend. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. To all our listeners, thank you so much for listening to the CHRO Mindset podcast. We appreciate you being here for our conversation with Sanjeeb. We hope you found his insights interesting. Although I'm not an HR person, but I found a lot of value in what he spoke. Your support means a lot to us. Please stay tuned for some more great talks with great HR leaders in the times to come. And thank you for being part of our community. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the CHRO Mindset podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe and leave us a review. Join us next week for another insightful conversation with a top HR leader. And if you have any questions or feedback, reach out to us on social media or via email. Thanks again for tuning in. See you next week.